There's new merch. New merch! And it's a design that Teespring did for me because I sold, I guess, X number of shirts. That got me a free commission from one of their in-house artists. I hope you can see the detail. You open that shit up. It's really cute. You can detect high quantities of cuteness in the left hand, lower left, and especially upper right quadrants of the image. There is a brave hamster not choosing the impossible and communicating with his aquatic friends outside. Here's some hamsters partying, wearing the masks from a certain game. Here's a hamster parent introducing her little tiny hamster child to the wonders of underwater living. Here's a hamster enjoying tunnels, painstakingly created for his or her benefit. There's hamsters running off a ledge into nothing. I don't see any floor there, I'm not sure. There's a squishy faced one. This one's my favorite. He's just sliding down that tube and being squashed and he doesn't care. And then of course lording above all of it is Hamdur Ryan in the tallest tower. So new merch, check it out. I'm not sure how you're going to check it out because I noticed recently that the merch shelf under my YouTube videos is just gone. And I didn't receive any notice that explains why. It's in my creator studio. It's still enabled. So in order to get to my merch, you're going to have to go into the description and go to the merch link. I'm going to do everything I can in the meanwhile to get the merch shelf reinstated. But until then, if you want a shirt, that's where to get it. I also have tote bags. I also have mugs. I'm going to have mouse pads at some point, but I don't think Teespring offers those to my knowledge. My transformation continues. Now normally on YouTube when you see a guy with facial hair sitting in his car talking to his phone, he's ranting about like shape-shifting Illuminati lizard people that are trying to steal his vital essence. This is only going to be slightly less crazy than that. I found a mounting solution for the wheel to the Dynamo. It's not perfect. I need to find a way better than this rubber washer to hold it on because it keeps slipping off. It's also at a weird angle, but remember it's going to be hanging from the lid so that the wire is going up out of reach of the hamsters. They can't chew it. And basically everything electronic will be where they can't reach. And I can easily lift it up out of the way for cleaning and removing the secondary floor. So that's mostly solved. I just need to figure out how to jam a metal washer onto there, and to that end, I purchased some needle nose pliers, also for interrogations should any rat spies be discovered. Also some other shit that you'll find out the purpose of in the future. Let me just take a moment while I'm in Lowe's to rant. If you're a frequenter of Lowe's or Home Depot, you've probably seen these cobalt mowers on sale with the prices going down and down and down. You know why that is? Because they suck dick. I bought these even after trying a couple different brands, and the battery failed just out of warranty. Can't get that replaced. All the tools I bought were cobalt, and the only one I was able to get a return authorized on was the mower. The problem is that they use low quality batteries and not enough of them. They're proprietary battery packs. They're just 18650s inside, but it's not nearly enough to mow even a modestly sized lawn. The only one that I found that was any good was the Ego line of tools. If you're going to go battery electric, first of all, I'd urge you to go corded for mowers. It's not a big deal. I have a corded mower. You just drag the cord over your shoulder behind you. You don't even notice it when you're going out and doing your rows. And then when you come back, you just make sure not to run over the cord, and then you reposition it for the next row. It's not hard, and you save a lot of money, and you don't have to worry about battery packs going bad or swapping them or anything like that. But if you're going to go battery powered for your lawn tools and your mower and everything, Ego is the only choice, and they don't pay me to say this. I wish they would. Ego, reach out to me. Give me a sponsorship. I'll show your products, and I'll only ever show good products. You should know by now that I am a man of principles, a hamster man of principles and will never shill anything that's crap. I'll only promote good products because I use them, I like them, and I want other people to know about them. Now see, they carry Greenworks, and they carry Cobalt, and they carry Craftsman. They do not carry Ego. Ego is the only battery mower that you should consider buying. Last time I checked, they're very pricey. They're like $800 for the 80-volt version with the double-sized battery pack. But that's the Tesla of electric mowers, man. If you're gonna do battery-powered mower, you gotta go big. Then again, you could build your own for much cheaper. If you go on Craigslist and get one of those old lead-acid battery-powered mowers, where the batteries are dead, they play dumb about it, but if you confront them and say, well, you're selling this because the battery's dead, they say, something's wrong with the battery, I don't know what it is. I'll tell you what it is, it's dead, and you're playing dumb. But if you get them to cop to that, they'll probably drop the price, and then when you get it, you can take out the dead lead-acid batteries, and usually it's a multiple of 12. Oh, it's always a multiple of 12, because lead-acid batteries are 12 volts. So you'll get a 24 or 36 volt mower that used to run on lead acid, and you just open it up, and where the lead acid batteries used to be, you put an e-bike battery. It's that simple. You just make sure the e-bike battery is the same voltage, 24 or 36. It's hard to find 24 these days. You should really go for 36. That's the lowest voltage that most e-bike battery makers manufacture anymore. And then you splice the correct female connector onto the wires coming from the mower so you can plug in your e-bike battery, and then when you're ready to charge it, you just take it out and plug it into the charger that came with the lithium e-bike battery, and Bob's your uncle. It's that easy, and you'll have an oversized battery that will be guaranteed to last the entire lawn for almost any conceivable size of lawn that would fit in suburbia. So you can build your own solution that will be cheaper than and superior to any of these. But if you are shy about that, if you're anxious about building your own solution, and you want to buy, for whatever reason, a off-the-shelf solution that's already figured out for you, do not get Cobalt, get Ego. This is really something you can't afford to cheap out on. The frustrating thing is, the mower itself is great. The motor quality is great these days. Only the battery is the weak link in the ones that they cheap out on the battery. And the battery is the part that they should never cheap out on. That's like the heart of any battery-powered tool or vehicle. So if you're looking to go electric, and for mowing, you definitely should. It'll make you really popular with your neighbors because it'll be much quieter. You don't have to fuck around with that pull start. There's a lot less in the way of fluids and shit to foul up the engine and require the engine to be rebuilt every couple of years. But consider going corded. Even Cobalt, the brand that I've been shitting on all this time, makes a perfectly fine corded mower. The only problem with their products is that they cheap out on the battery. They give you too little battery for too much money. It doesn't do the job, and it dies too quickly. The corded ones are fine, and it's much less of a hassle than you're imagining. That's it. I swear to God. That's the end of my rant. This is the sort of topic where if you let me rant about it, I'll just do it forever. So I'm cutting it short here. End of rant. I lied, I'm not done. They also make corded leaf blowers, corded weed whackers, corded chainsaws. All your tools should be electric, and frankly, they should either be corded and cheap, or if you're going to go battery powered, you should go Ego. There's nothing in between those two that's worth even a single wrinkle of Satan's nutsack. Jesus, I sound just like a 30-year-old boomer. Now, Quake. That was a great game. Also going to throw in a sneak preview of something else I've been working on, just so that in the near term you can see something cool happen involving hamsters. Well, what's that capsule? What's that capsule under there? That looks about the right size for a hamster. All I would need is some air holes and some maybe 3D printed legs, so that when this is resting on the ground, there's enough clearance for the capsule underneath it not to touch the ground. But after that, we're pretty much go for the first manned, or should I say hamstered, drone flight in history. Go on YouTube, try to find one. You'll find an RC airplane with a rat, and you'll find some intrepid and ingenious individuals who have built ionic lifters out of balsa wood and aluminum foil, who have lifted mice, But nobody, for some reason, has yet thought to make a hamster helicopter out of their drone yet. Until now. I'm tired of waiting for the parts guy to dig up a supplier for the specific fitting I need. Something's got to get done in the meantime. I'm not just going to sit on my ass. So in anticipation of hopefully eventually finding the parts that I need, I'm going to remove this gate valve from this habitat and the smaller habitat and replace them with the threaded ones. Alright, all you handsome sons of bitches, let's get this party started. For the following operation, we shall need these 2 wrenches. Kind of shockingly, I need a different size wrench for the bolt head versus the nut that goes on it. I wasn't expecting that. I'm not too worried though, this is fairly straightforward. And I could just skip to the end and show it all taken apart and then put together, but one of the most frequent comments I get over and over is that you want to actually see all the work being done. Some of you even asked me to live stream it. I don't know about that. I really cherish the ability as a deeply awkward person to edit the footage of whatever I'm saying or doing after the fact in order to surgically remove any cringe which may have occurred therein. Are you a cringy person? Just buy yourself or pirate yourself a copy of Sony Vegas. Problem solved. If only we could do that in real time. Although, given some of those advanced deep learning based Snapchat filters, I imagine it's only a matter of time. That's kind of a dark future. That's some Black Mirror shit. Where you go on a date, but the law requires that you keep your augmented reality glasses on. So you can't tell if you were catfished or not. Because it's their legal right to identify as a beautiful woman, regardless of what's underneath the illusion. Or a man. Maybe there will be gross fedora neckbeards going out there with avatars that look like Ziz or, you know, whoever women think is hot these days. I guess Benedict Cumberbatch. I don't know, man. I'm out of touch. I used to be hip, but then they changed what hip was, and then I wasn't hip anymore. It'll happen to you. There we go. Now we just have to prepare this one for installation. This makes me nervous as fuck, but this is why I'm glad I didn't apply any silicone. Although I want to take some time to address different sealants, because somebody on Twitter asked me to rank sealants. And this is something I need to address because a lot of my older habitats were sealed using cyanoacrylate glue, which is a type of super glue that uses a accelerant spray, which I liked as an impatient person because I didn't have to wait for the glue to cure. It would cure almost instantly. But if you're going to use that type of glue, whatever you're doing is permanent, basically, because it cures very securely and it's rigid. So whatever you attach is going to be a permanent feature of whatever you're using the glue on, and you can never really undo it without breaking something, because if you flex it too much, it'll crack. And for something that needs to go underwater, it's not a good thing. Silicone sealant is much better. It's not fast curing. It takes like 2 days to fully cure when exposed to air. The nice thing is that it's fault tolerant. If you fuck something up, you can remove the part and then you can peel away the silicone, the dried silicone, and then reapply fresh silicone. So with silicone sealant, you get do-overs. And I would say it's just as, if not more, watertight than cyanoacrylate, which was never really intended for underwater applications, whereas silicone sealant was, you often find it labeled marine grade silicone sealant. So the answer to that question is 100%. For underwater applications, silicone sealant is the best thing to use. You want to apply it in between whatever you're trying to form a seal is, between. So you press it flat. So you squish, you apply a thin layer of the sealant because it's going to get spread thin by the squishing action. You're going to want to squish it flat, and that will form, see the rubber seals around these washers? It'll basically form a seal like that, but it's created in a bespoke manner rather than being manufactured that way. So these appear to be just perfectly the right size, which is what I was hoping. Made by the same company, it's the same, almost the same part number. Everything about it is the same except for the color of the plastic and the fitting. The fitting is threaded, as you can see. Now I'm thinking this isn't all the work I need to do on this habitat. I think because there's a small leak at one of the screws connecting the habitat shell to the ballast pods, I'm going to need to remove the ballast pods and apply these rubber-lined washers to at least one of these screws, just because I drilled an unnecessary hole nearby one time. I just made that one small mistake when attaching ballast pods, and my opinion is so far has really been that that's not as big of a deal as you might think, because it's going to be a positive pressure habitat, but it would give me peace of mind to know it's as waterproof as it possibly can be. And honestly, it should be watertight enough as is, that I can submerge it in a tub of water up to here and not have any water leak in. Even if there's not going to be any pressure differential when air pressure is applied. I don't want, if for example I'm swapping compressors or something, I don't want water to start coming in. Because even a small amount of water can create problems like mold, for example. I need to get a screwdriver with a tip that will turn these. I think if I just attach the nuts, nuts, that I'll be able to turn these and it will pull it tight without having to do this beforehand. But I like to have everything nice and flush first. Flush. So there's still some work to do on this, but I made dramatically fewer major errors in constructing this than I thought I would. So very little has to be redone, and I'm pleased with that. This is going to be the most solid habitat design yet, and it's going to have the features everybody has been clamoring for since Ham-Base Alpha. Mostly just more space. My 3D printing guy keeps saying he'll come up with the drop-in floor. I don't know when that's going to happen. I really need my own 3D printer. I don't want to e-beg, but the fact of the matter is that right now the Patreon is down $90 from last month. I'll put that up on the screen. Most of that $90 worth of supporters left in the last few days of last month as the first of this month approached, which typically happens. That's not a big deal. The big deal is that usually in the past they have been replaced by new patrons, and that has not happened this time. I'm still down $90 and I have not attracted enough new patrons to make up for that. And again, I'm not e-begging so that I can live a lavish lifestyle of yachts and sports cars. Underwater shit costs money. As was told to NASA during congressional hearings about the Apollo program, someone said, no bucks, no Buck Rogers. Well, the same is true of putting anything underwater. You need money to do that, even on a small scale. If I can get up to 2,000, I'll have enough money that I can save up in a reasonable time frame for that underwater drone, which has built-in hard points on the underside for payloads of your choice. And you know, given that it's me we're talking about, what the payload is going to be. It's going to be a hamster capsule, and since there's already a control tether that goes up to the Android hand controller, since radio doesn't go through water for shit. I could also just zip tie an air tube, an airline, along the control tether down to the sub. I was thinking, for a long time I was thinking I'd attach a compressed air bottle, but those don't last too long, even for a hamster. For a hamster it would last much longer than for a human. You know those little Coke can sized emergency spare air type things? Like the one that got shilled on Indiegogo and promised much more endurance underwater in terms of how many minutes you could breathe with it than it really would deliver, and they thought you were going to fucking fill it with a bicycle pump. I mean, technically you could, but Thunderfoot did a great video on why that's an unrealistic proposition. Problem with that is, even then, it's a finite air source, and that's not necessary when I could just attach an airline to the tether. If there's going to be a tether in the first place, I may as well supply air from the surface, because then I can have a much larger battery and absolutely ensure that there's no interruptions of life support. Whereas the only indication I would have that life support has ceased, that the air has run out, if it was carrying its own compressed air supply, would be that the bubbles stopped, and then I would not have that much time to bring the sub to the surface, and I don't like the sound of that. The bottle would also ruin the hydrodynamics of the sub and add more buoyancy that I'd have to compensate for with either weights or syntactic foam. So I'm thinking the airline going down to it will remain a feature of Hamsub Mark II, the same same role that it played with Hamsub Mark I, only because Hamsub Mark II will be a much larger, weightier vehicle, it won't be as impacted by the drag of the airline as Hamsub Mark I was, being that it was just this tiny little thing strapped to a little bathtub RC sub. Anyways, that's the new hatch connected to MegaHab. After I fix the washer in here, replace that with a rubber-lined one, which I may have to make another trip to Lowe's to get the correct diameter to cover up the hole, the second hole that I drilled very close to the first one in error. I think that's still fixable. I think I could still get an absolute watertight seal for that bolt, and then we'll have a habitat shell that's so watertight that even when it's not under pressure, I can fill it up to here and no water will enter, which will be great for my peace of mind. Given that this has to go underwater and remain durable and remain, have its structural integrity remain basically perfect for years on end, and it's going to be a permanent fixture on the bottom of the pond, whatever lake or pond I put it in. I really want to get everything right the first time before I put it in the water. Alright, you beautiful bastards, now it's time for this one. Yes, I'm definitely going to keep using this habitat, or at least this form factor, because having a smaller, lighter weight, removable habitat that has the water bottles attached, in fact I may attach 4 of them, means I can have a removable food and water module so that the rest of the colony can stay at depth permanently, and to resupply the food and water, all I do is remove the small food and water module and bring that to the surface, instead of having to surface each of the habitats individually to for example, replace the food in the dishes or the water in their water bottles. Just keep that all to a single module. I don't know if I'll use this one because this has an unnecessary power cord for the heated floor, whereas ideally a dedicated food and water module would only have the airline. And this one also has a lot of design problems because it's an earlier habitat, like the fact I used cyanoacrylate to attach the water bottle and it has cracked, and now I can turn it. It's still watertight because I also glued it from the underside, but this just highlights some of the problems with using cyanoacrylate. Don't be impatient like I was. Use silicone sealant. It also has these old crusty power inlets from back when I was using USB powered heating pads, 2 of them, and I couldn't really remove them, so I just left them in there, snipped the cords, and then ran the power cord in, which reminds me I'm probably going to have to snip the power cord inside, pull it out, remove it, because this cord is only about 6 feet long. So the way that I get a much longer cable, say 10 feet or so, if I want to deploy to 8 feet and have a little bit of extra to work with, is to take an extension cord, snip off one end of it, run that into here, and then splice the wires with those of the heating pad inside here. But for MegaHab, since this one, I'm probably just going to rebuild it with the same parts and leave out all the flaws that are only present in this one because it was kind of a learning experience. Anyway, enough gab. I've removed the bolts from this one already, so you don't have to waste time watching me do that, having done so once already in the prior clip. Let's get down to business. Work it every day. Is this? No, it's the other way around. I really want to get back to streaming. I was having fun with, what was it, Doorways, Holy Mountains of Flesh. I just got stuck, and that's one of the problems with streaming games you've never played before, is that you can get stuck for hours on something really simple, and it gets really boring for the viewers. So I'm thinking my strategy going forward will be to play games to completion, and then stream them. And basically only stream games that I've already played all the way through. Funds are a little tight this month. Which you may have trouble believing, but remember that you guys are paying my rent and utilities, and there's a little bit left over after that for Hamster stuff, but not as much as you might think. And that's a blessing. That's why I always hustle and don't sit around on my ass, because I know that you're not paying me to sit on my ass. You're paying me to see meaningful progress on habitat construction, which is what you're seeing now. So don't think I don't appreciate that, but there's not a lot left over for anything other than small things currently at the current level of about $1,200. I think it's $1,210 right now. Such is the cost of living in the Pacific Northwest. So for example, I want to stream the new Blood Fresh Supply, and that's $10. But that's a significant amount for somebody living on the amount that I currently live on, and I did work before. I can't work a traditional job. I've tried about a dozen times. I always get fired. They never tell me why, but it's not hard to figure out given that I'm a fucking spurg. Not that my metrics were ever bad. My metrics were very, very frequently the best in the office whenever I would work an office job. When I did a call center, I had the best numbers. They had like prizes and shit. They like employee of the week, and I got the best numbers 2 weeks in a row. It's just that I'm unnerving. People with autism are unnerving, and they frequently get fired just because people don't like them, and they get a weird, uncomfortable feeling about them. I don't know what about me would give off that vibe. I'm just a simple underwater hamster farmer tending to my water hamsters. But it's really fucking hard for me to hold down a traditional job, but don't think I haven't tried. I was going through voc rehab for about, 5 years before I gave up on it, just because every job that got me, I was fired within about 2 weeks, sometimes during training. Asking an inappropriate question that I didn't realize crossed the line, for example, or speaking too loudly, or mumbling, or just nitpicky stuff. Or, for example, during one interview, I was asked what was the latest Intel processor, and I knew it was that there was a Core i7 out, which was the latest at the time, but I didn't know if that was the absolute latest. So it's not that I didn't know the name of the processor, I was second guessing myself as to whether that was really the most recent one. And the guy interviewing me interpreted that as total ignorance of the CPU market, which was not the case. But it was interpreted cynically. So it's really ruthless out there. It's ruthless. And apparently I fucked up one of these washers and I'm going to have to use a replacement. That sucks, but I've got a bunch of them. I apparently tightened it so much that it split the rubber. This one was a very tight fit. I don't know how I got it on in the first place. Is this the right way to turn it even? I think so. Yeah, this one's wiggly now. Okay, that's good. That one's loose. Lefty loosey, righty tighty. Lefty loosey sounds like a caricature from a webcomic or a political cartoon. Also, lefty loosey, righty tighty is kind of a good, in a nutshell, summary of the differences between the major political mindsets in the U.S. I should patent that or something if it hasn't been done already. Probably it's been done. Get the fuck off of there. God damn it. It is on there, man. It is fucking on there tight. There we go. There's some degree of suction that happens just because you've pushed the rubber so close. See what I did here? I fucked up the rubber by over-tightening it. I won't do that again. Because that compromises the seal. And you don't want any of that. You want everything to be as perfect as it can be, because it's going to have to last. Nice thing, though, is that once I finally crack this bastard of a tunnels engineering problem, once and for all, everything will be modular. And I can leave 90% of the colony at depth, and if one module needs replacement, I can just detach it and bring that one to the surface without bringing the rest to the surface and repair it, which was always the plan. And when I was just doing this on a small scale in an aquarium, that wasn't really necessary because there wasn't really any practical way to connect them within the spatial confines of that aquarium, and it wasn't for longer than like a month at a time. So the application didn't really require that kind of thought be put into it. But if you're doing it in a natural body of water and you're doing it for years, then the level of engineering, work that has to go into it to make everything really, really work and really be modular. It's like the difficulty jump in disposable rockets versus reusable ones. It's just a whole different league that you enter into when you want to go from putting hamsters in an aquarium versus, for a couple weeks at a time versus putting them in a lake for years. And potentially I can keep them down there for years. There's going to be enough space in the colony that even if I didn't want to have a removable food and water module, I could probably include enough food and water in the existing habitats. If I had 4 water bottles per habitat and like 8 food containers, they would just have everything they needed in there for their entire lifespans. Because that dry food does not spoil in a hurry. 3 years, which is their lifespan if you do a good job, is probably pushing it for the stability of that food. But other than that, if I could find a food that's good for hamsters that had a shelf life of at least 3 years, I could include everything needed for their entire lifespan in the habitat and not have to interfere at all to replenish it. The waste problem is another issue. We're going to require another module like this to be constructed, and I'm going to have to collect some of their waste beforehand. They can be trained. They can be potty trained. You just need to put their waste someplace so that it smells like shit. So they figure, oh well, this part of the cage is already ruined, I may as well shit here. And remember, my saucy nibbas, always put your tools away when you're finished choosing the impossible. Be a gallant, not a goofus. There's a fresh meme for you. Only 30s kids will get that one. Hamster Air Command, Hamster Air Command, come in. Requesting permission to land at Megahab. Over. This is Hamster Air Command. Permission to land at Megahab denied. Because you are dangerously gay.